In the face of growing international condemnation over forced labor involving Uyghurs, Volkswagen has finally decided to withdraw from Xinjiang. But what lies behind this decision? Is it the result of pressure from the US, or is it part of a carefully orchestrated strategy by China? More importantly, why has Volkswagen agreed to extend its partnership with China until 2040? In 2013, Volkswagen opened a factory in Urumqi, Xinjiang, ostensibly to expand its market presence. However, this was actually a symbolic investment. The focus on hiring ethnic minority workers was a tactic to align with the political demands of the Chinese government in exchange for lucrative profits from the Eastern market. In 2019, an agreement Volkswagen signed with the Chinese government was exposed, requiring employees to undergo patriotic training and militarized management. German media were outraged, accusing Volkswagen of compromising with the dictatorial regime and indirectly supporting human rights violations. As a result, the brand's image suffered greatly. Following the revelations, Volkswagen ceased full vehicle assembly at its Xinjiang plant, maintaining only technical testing operations. The number of employees shrank from 650 to under 200. The real push for Volkswagen's withdrawal came from dual pressure, from the international community and the US market. In February 2024, researcher Adrian Zenz revealed that a subcontractor involved in Volkswagen's Xinjiang test track was implicated in forced labor, reigniting public outrage. The US Congress held a special hearing on forced labor in Xinjiang, where several lawmakers directly criticized Volkswagen for their complicity in human rights violations. This hearing quickly sparked an international media storm. Protests erupted across Europe, with consumers outside Volkswagen showrooms holding signs demanding the company's immediate exit from Xinjiang, with slogans such as complicit in Uyghur genocide. Volkswagen's brand image took another hit, and consumer trust plummeted. In the US, several ports seized Volkswagens suspected of containing parts made in Xinjiang, further deepening the company's global credibility issue. Now with Trump set to return to the White House, Volkswagen knows that without addressing the Xinjiang issue, it risks being excluded from the US market. Despite the intense public backlash, the Chinese government did not allow Volkswagen to leave Xinjiang easily. The spokesperson for the Germany-based World Uyghur Congress revealed that Beijing explicitly demanded Volkswagen continue operations in Xinjiang, even at a loss. The reasoning was simple. As long as multinational companies remain in Xinjiang, the Chinese government could argue, if there were human rights issues, multinational companies would have already pulled out. In this way, China sought to weaken the international moral consensus on human rights. So, why is China now allowing Volkswagen to withdraw from Xinjiang? This is a calculated exchange of interests. China still needs Volkswagen. Through this withdrawal, China preserves the legitimacy of its joint venture with Volkswagen in international markets while securing an extension of their partnership with SAIC until 2040 to ensure Chinese-made cars continue to flow into global markets through Europe. Volkswagen's predicament in China is not unique. Any company attempting to sever ties with Xinjiang faces severe repercussions. In 2021, Swedish brand H&M announced it would no longer source cotton from Xinjiang, resulting in a total ban in China. The brand disappeared from Chinese internet platforms for 16 months, with all its products removed from e-commerce sites, and even taxi apps no longer listed its stores' locations. In September 2024, PVH, the parent company of CK and Tommy, was investigated by the Chinese government for similar reasons. German chemical giant BASF was also caught in this crossfire. According to German media Der Spiegel and ZDF, BASF employees were reportedly tasked with monitoring Uyghur families. After the incident was exposed, BASF fully withdrew from Xinjiang in February 2024. Volkswagen's exit from Xinjiang highlights the pressure faced by multinational companies in authoritarian regimes, where economic interests often lead to complicity in oppressive policies. It shows that doing business under such regimes only exacerbates long-term challenges for companies. Volkswagen's departure from Xinjiang is also linked to the strict sanctions imposed following the U.S. implementation of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. On November 22nd, the U.S. added 29 Chinese companies to its import ban list, marking the largest expansion since the law's enactment, bringing the total number of sanctioned Chinese companies to over 100. The U.S. has elevated the issue of forced labor in China from a human rights concern to a matter of national security and long-term economic strategy. Xinjiang is a vital economic hub for China, producing over 85% of the country's cotton, and is also an important base for tomato and solar panel production. According to human rights organizations, since 2017, at least 1 million people have been detained in re-education camps, with another 500,000 sentenced after unjust trials. These individuals are forced into labor, contributing to the significant economic benefits for the Chinese government. With Trump's return to power, he has repeatedly stated his intent to take stronger actions against China. Under such pressure, more foreign companies may follow Volkswagen's lead, citing market adjustments or economic reasons for withdrawing from Xinjiang. This would severely impact the key industries in the region. The impact could also extend to other areas. As the international community increasingly scrutinizes the sources of production, similar prison labor camps in other parts of China may face heightened scrutiny. This could force China to rethink its entire industrial structure and production methods, potentially weakening the competitive advantage built on cheap labor. In this context, Volkswagen is strategically positioning itself for an even more challenging international environment. Currently, Volkswagen is facing significant setbacks in China, with its market share continuing to decline. In 2020, the company held a 19% share in the Chinese market. By 2022, this had dropped to 14.5%, and by 2023, it had fallen further to around 10%. The situation has worsened this year, with FAW Volkswagen sales for the first half of 2024 declining by 11% and its market share dropping to 6.4%. Behind this decline is the Chinese government's firm control over the automotive industry. Since its founding, the Chinese government has established a Big Three, Small Three automotive structure, with the Big Three including FAW, Dongfeng, and Chang'an, and the Small Three including SAIC, GAC, and BAIC. By the 1980s, foreign car manufacturers, no matter how famous, were required to form joint ventures with these state-owned enterprises to do business in China. This policy aimed to control the automotive manufacturing and sales sectors, extract significant financial and tax revenue, and simultaneously absorb Western technology. However, the Chinese government quickly realized that the so-called joint venture research and development centers were primarily focused on testing and validation, with core technology still in the hands of foreign companies. The joint venture, in essence, was just a product manufacturing plant. As a result, the Chinese government began to leverage the Western technologies it had acquired to develop its own local teams. After China's ascension to the WTO, the country's automotive industry began to relax its regulations, leading to the rise of a number of regionally prominent companies: Chery in Wuhu, BYD in Shenzhen, Geely in Zhejiang, and Great Wall in Hebei. The main task of these companies was to absorb and digest the R&D systems of foreign enterprises. Later, to accelerate the development of smart technology and electrification, the Chinese government opened up the automotive sector to internet companies after 2010. New players such as Xiaomi, NIO, Xpeng, and Neta emerged. This situation has led to the continuous erosion of Volkswagen's market share in China. However, Volkswagen has devised an interesting survival strategy. On the surface, they extended the joint venture agreement with SAIC until 2040, signaling a long-term commitment to the Chinese market. But in reality, they're divesting from older assets and transferring funds abroad. Volkswagen has sold its factory in Xinjiang, shut down its car manufacturing plant in Yizheng, and even sold its test track in Anting. Without a test track, how can new models be tested? Clearly, Volkswagen is planning to withdraw. At the same time, Volkswagen has been making large investments in electric vehicles and smart technology in China, with some investments reaching tens of billions or even over 100 billion yuan. This seems perplexing at first, but it is not difficult to understand upon closer inspection. Analysts suggest that Volkswagen might be using the booming EV and smart technology sectors as a cover to transfer funds out of China. While Volkswagen's joint ventures in China have earned substantial profits over the years, these profits are constrained by China's foreign exchange controls, making it difficult to transfer funds abroad. Moreover, much of the profits are required to be reinvested in China, such as expanding production or R&D innovation, or other areas that align with government policy. Volkswagen can only go along with the situation investing billions in the electrification transformation, autonomous driving research, and digital upgrades. However, analysts point out that a significant portion of these funds is paid to foreign companies for equipment, expert hiring, and patent fees. In essence, while it appears that Volkswagen is investing in electric cars and smart technologies in China, it is likely finding ways to transfer funds abroad. Why is Volkswagen investing in EVs and smart technology in China? Their answer lies in the speed at which they can test and iterate new features in the Chinese market. If Volkswagen wants to try a new function, they can find a supplier in China and have a prototype ready in a month. In other markets, the same process could take 6 months. Currently, Volkswagen is acquiring Chinese automotive software companies and recruiting Chinese engineers. The number of employees at Volkswagen's R&D centers in China has surpassed 5,000, with an investment of over 10 billion yuan. Not only Volkswagen, but European and Japanese car manufacturers are adopting the same strategy. According to statistics, in 2023 alone, European and Japanese car makers invested in or acquired more than 20 automotive technology companies in China. At the same time, they have turned China into their primary R&D hub. Their R&D investment in China in 2023 grew by over 30% compared to 2022. This is all part of the training process. Once these companies have perfected their smart technology and electric vehicles in China, they plan to set up more advanced R&D centers in the US. At that point, the cost structure of a vehicle will be redistributed, with R&D and intellectual property costs being significantly higher. These costs will be attributed to US-based operations, while manufacturing costs will be low as production occurs in Mexico. For example, a car priced at $50,000 might have $10,000 in R&D costs and $40,000 in manufacturing costs. If the car is now made with $40,000 in R&D costs in the US and $10,000 in manufacturing costs in Mexico, even if the US imposes a 60% tariff on cars made in Mexico, the actual tax will only be applied to the $10,000, meaning a tax of $6,000. In other words, Volkswagen and Toyota are using their factories in China for product iteration. The real profits, however, will be made in the US market. Chinese car manufacturers are beginning to follow suit, heading to Mexico as well. They understand that while the Chinese market is large, with 23 million cars sold last year, its actual market value is only $800 billion. The US market, with just over 15 million cars sold, has a market value of $1.1 trillion, which clearly indicates that the real money lies in the US market. BYD has already identified factory locations in Mexico for large-scale production, while new players like XPeng and NIO are also eyeing the Mexican market. Why Mexico? First, it helps avoid high US tariffs. Second, labor costs are only 1/5 to 1/7 of those in the US, and even cheaper than in China. Third, Mexico is geographically close to the US, making transportation costs low. According to data, the scale of this exodus is considerable. In 2023 alone, Chinese car makers invested billions of dollars in Mexico. They have also registered numerous R&D companies in the US, which, although operating as American companies, are actually run by Chinese entities. They have even devised sales channels. The previous founder of the Chinese internet and smart TV brand LeEco, Jia Yueting, saw the company's market value exceed 160 billion yuan at its peak. However, in 2017, while LeEco faced a financial crisis, Jia fled China for the United States and has not returned since. In 2019, he filed for personal bankruptcy reorganization in the US. This is a prime example of a businessman who accumulated significant capital in China, then took his core technology and team to the US, where China regulatory authorities have little ability to monitor him. Now, after years of struggling in the US market and gaining familiarity with Chinese regulations, Jia has become a consultant to Chinese automakers, advising them on how to navigate American certifications and compliance issues. This situation has left the Chinese government in disarray. Initially, the Chinese government supported the international expansion of domestic automakers as a means of solving overcapacity issues and avoiding intense domestic market competition. However, this strategy has led many companies to relocate their R&D centers to the US and store their source code in foreign companies, resulting in the Chinese government losing control over the technology of these companies. In response, Beijing has held several meetings recently to discuss ways to prevent the outflow of core technologies, but the measures have had little effect. The Chinese government originally intended to use subsidies for new energy vehicles to push foreign automakers out of the Chinese market. However, foreign automakers have instead turned China into a testing ground for new vehicle models and product iterations. What was supposed to be a strategy to send domestic companies abroad to expand into new markets has instead left the Chinese government unable to fully control the technology. The new EV industry, in turn, has become another unfinished project for the Chinese authorities. This highlights how market forces are difficult to suppress through political power, and the Chinese government's attempt to control industrial development through administrative measures may ultimately backfire. In the ongoing transformation of the automotive industry, traditional automakers like Volkswagen and Toyota have demonstrated remarkable adaptability. After discovering that its flagship MEB electric platform was not suitable for the Chinese market, Volkswagen openly acknowledged its shortcomings, even humorously advertising, "Please don't call me a second-rate electric car." This self-deprecating market strategy, which might have been unthinkable a decade ago, has helped Volkswagen win a favor with Chinese consumers. Volkswagen has also made strategic investments in XPeng Motors, acquiring a board position and used joint procurement plans to optimize cost structures for both companies. XPeng, which sells only a few thousand vehicles per month, struggles to secure discounts from suppliers. However, Volkswagen, with its annual global procurement of 2 million vehicles, has significant leverage, and suppliers must treat them with respect. Now, by combining procurement with XPeng, Volkswagen appears to be helping XPeng secure better pricing. But in reality, Volkswagen is using this strategy to gain deeper insights into XPeng's supply chain and cost structure. This strategic retreat for future gain shows Volkswagen's decade-long experience and wisdom. Toyota has also taken a practical approach, moving towards localized in-car systems and even investing in Chinese automotive software companies. A decade ago, such a move would have seemed unimaginable, but in the current harsh market conditions, Toyota has chosen pragmatism. These traditional automakers are showing a clear awareness of the need to adapt. They are actively seeking change and finding opportunities amidst uncertainty, achieving self-improvement through competition. This is the key to the long-term success of these century-old companies. However, even the most astute companies have had to make compromises in certain areas. For Volkswagen, this compromise meant extending its joint venture with SAIC until 2040.